and a very good Sunday evening, and welcome to our February speaker series live from Fly on the Wall Productions and Imagine Moving On. Thanks to our live YouTube and Facebook audience. Sponsors, got to give a shout out tonight to BCK. If you are, maybe buying or selling a home, commercial property, or some land, having a brokerage that has the local insight and experience is an absolute must. That's why you really should think about making it BCK Real Estate. 86 North Main Street in Barrie. John Biondelillo and the rest of his team over there, always ready to help out. Also, shout out tonight to Fecto Homes with a vast inventory of single and double-wide mobile homes, modular homes, condos too. Fecto Homes has got the goods, your total housing solution. And we love the fact that not only are they local, but they have been since the 70s, a long time. 350 River Street in Montpelier. And, of course, right across the street from us here, Nelson Ace Hardware. Step up your game and show old man Winter who the heck is boss with help from the Helpful Place. They've got everything over there to fight winter, from rock salt and shovels and snowblowers and heated blankets and cozy socks and you name it. Celebrating over 40 years helping Vermonters. NelsonAceHardware.com to order everything and anything. Tonight is our second speaker series episode, and we are so excited about it. We started this last month. Last month, the topic was identifying and overcoming resistance in order to facilitate personal growth. Very interesting conversation with our speaker, Paul Brody. If you haven't seen it yet, it is right on the page. You should go back and give that a watch. At the end of each month, we are going to be featuring a different guest speaker speaking on a variety of topics. Karina Thurston, unfortunately, was not able to make it tonight. She is ill, as are so many other folks right now. We wish her well. I'm sure she'll be fine. And we do look forward to rescheduling Karina as an amazing speaker. Cannot wait for her to come in here and share her story of great resilience. Dr. Rick Barnett is also going to be making his way in here within the next month or two. He's excited about it. He's watching. He is posting. And Paul and I are just thrilled that Rick is going to be coming in here speaking about psychedelics and psychedelic treatment, among many other things. And Kristen Williams, who is a local counselor who has a wealth of information and great insight on just becoming a better you and living a more fuller life. And I cannot wait for Kristen to come in here. I haven't met her, but I've heard a lot about her. Make sure you hop on ImagineMovingOn.com if you have a chance. Much like our first episode, this one tonight is going to draw largely from the book The 5 Levels of Attachment by Don Miguel Ruiz. Paul is with us tonight, kind of a pinch hitter, taking over for Karina. And Paul, first of all, welcome, man. I'm always so happy to see you here. And this is a book where you have been pressuring me to read this book now for more than 2 years, probably closer to 5.
Probably.
This is one of the most important ones by Don Miguel Ruiz.
Yeah.
The 4 agreements, of course, the big one, but you're going to be presenting a kind of a theory on how we develop beliefs, what beliefs are, how we attach to those beliefs, and most importantly, how attaching to those beliefs can impact our daily lives and our relationships with everyone, from coworkers to even our spouses.
And yourself.
Yeah, true. So start out tonight with what is truth and what is belief? I mean, I think most of us would agree it's kind of something that's a little subjective, but you and I have had many a conversation off the air where we, for a variety of different reasons, maybe we're influenced by our family, or friends, or culture, we create our own truths, what we believe is the truth. And that is, how is that related to belief, though?
We'll get there.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you define as truth? And in this speaker series, anybody who's been following us since the last speaker series, we're still evolving in how we present these things. Last one was more like a lecture. This one's going to be more of a conversation. We want to, if there's anybody, everyone who's listening.
Yeah,
not
we've got a bunch of people tuned in.
Everyone who's listening right now. If you want to get involved with the conversation, go ahead and comment anytime. JD's going to be watching that.
Yeah.
So let's define truth. What is truth? And well, for you, what would you define it, JD?
The truth is that I am, unfortunately, not 5'8" and 160 pounds. That's
how you define truth.
I mean, it's fact. It's fact. That is the truth.
That's where you're going.
That is the truth.
All right. So truth is something that's verifiable.
It's verifiable.
Is that what you're saying?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the truth. It's a fact.
All right.
How could you not believe in the truth? And look at what's happening to so many of us right now with our relationships. We have a belief system that is attached to what we believe is the truth. These are the facts.
Right.
This president or that president or Elon Musk or whoever the hell. I mean, we have strong opinions.
Wow,
and
way to take it right to the divisional. You went right to level 4.
I'm just saying it's like we feel like we need to make sure that others are aware of the truth
as we see it.
Right. But how many of us are walking around saying that's the truth, in my opinion?
Not enough.
As I see it.
Well, it's a two-way thing there. So we're not going around talking about. We don't say it in that way. I might more often than the average person because I'm constantly thinking about this. So I might. I don't know. Maybe I don't do it as much as I think I do. But I feel like I might say my opinion more often than.
Yeah, I've heard you say that many times.
So there's that part of it. So when I express my truth, my opinion, I can express it in that way. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
And then you, as the listener, how often do you hear somebody speaking and go, well, that's his opinion? Inside, maybe you don't say that, just in your mind, well, that's his opinion. Or do you, I can't believe that. How can he possibly think that? Right? That's usually what we usually judge. Instead of going, well, that's his opinion, we go, that can't be right. That's what we're doing. We're judging. So it's a two-way thing there. So when we're talking about truth, there's the truth that I'm presenting, and there's the truth that you're hearing, or that you're hearing through. Right, the truth that you use as your lens to receive information. So that's where belief. We'll get to that.
Sure.
We can get into that a little bit more. But with truth for me, truth is what is. So this is my cell phone. This is a phone, in our common terms. 50 years ago, nobody would identify this as a phone if they didn't know what it was. But today, this is a phone, and so we could say that's truth. You said verifiable. I could pass this around and we could all agree on it. And this gets into the 4 agreements that you mentioned. So the 5 levels of attachment is Miguel Ruiz Jr. So
yes.
the son.
Oh, that's
yeah.
right.
So Dad wrote 4 agreements. Son wrote the 5 levels of attachment. But yeah, same name. And so he gets into how in the 4 agreements he talks about how truth is what the thing is. And as soon as we start to apply language to it, we've lost some of the truth because now there's interpretation. And he uses the example of tree. He's a native Spanish speaker, so he says in English it's tree, but then in Spanish it's arbol. Which is it? So if it's true, then it's the same all the time everywhere, right? And so as soon as we start putting labels to it, then we've lost some of its truth. And even when I say tree, what do you picture? What's the first image that comes to mind?
Big maple tree.
Big maple tree. So I'm picturing an evergreen, big super Christmas tree.
Yeah.
Right. And so. But they're both trees, so there's generic, not generic, but the general terms that we use. That's all right. We don't need to go into all that. But the point is, I say tree, you pictured one tree, I pictured another tree. Those are both trees, but it's not the same thing. So as soon as we say tree, now we've reduced what we're talking about into language. And in that process, we lose some of what the truth is.
Yeah.
The truth is the tree. So if I was talking to you about a specific tree, and I say, I love this tree, it's so beautiful.
Sure.
You picture a tree in your mind as you're listening to me without thinking about it, probably, but just a tree comes to mind. Everybody listening to this right now is probably, when we say, what is a tree? Some image of a tree pops in your mind, or maybe multiple trees or a whole forest or something. But I'm talking about a specific tree, one tree. It's one tree somewhere that I'm picturing in my mind, and everyone else is just making up what the tree is. So the truth of the tree that I'm talking about is in the tree itself. Wherever that tree is, that is the truth. And then by talking about it, we've lost some of that. Does that track?
No, I'm with you, man.
Right.
I'm with you. It's deep, but I've got you. Alice says, well, there's that response. Well, that's your truth. If I tell you the sky is green, is that my truth?
Right. Well, and this is where truth is it's very subjective.
Yeah, well, that's what
right.
Greg just wrote.
Yeah,
truth is subjective. It gets skewed by opinions.
Greg or G?
We don't know.
Oh, it just says Greg?
We don't know.
Well, I'm asking what the truth is. Can you verify it? Right. And so this is it. When we're talking about objects and things like that, there are some elements of it that we can say this is what it is, and we all agree on it.
Sure.
But I think truth, does something become more or less true depending on how many people believe it? Right. And so that's part of this whole discussion too.
Sure.
But is the sky green? Well, is it your truth? Maybe. I don't know. Again, it depends on what truth is. How do you define truth? I think we all have our own definition of truth. Some people are going to define truth as what an expert says, as what's commonly defined as the truth with the experience. But truth is so much more to that. I think there's a lot of subjectivity into that. And so when we identify truth, I think we're most of the time we're talking about belief.
Right.
And that's how we work into that.
And
topic.
It just seems, I heard today the two things you never talk about: politics and religion, because for obvious reasons, so much of this is built on someone's interpretation of the truth, what they believe in.
Right. And that's the foundation for this conversation, which is what the book, The Four Agreements, is hitting on. Was we have opinions, and then we're taught opinions as we grow up.
Sure.
And so we're taught the opinions, and then we agree with those opinions. That's what the agreement means, but then you accept it as truth. You start to develop an attachment to this idea. Sorry, I cut you off.
No,
Right.
absolutely not.
Well, you were making that angry face at me and going like this.
No.
So I thought
totally focused here. So tell us about your experience with the church. You were
the church. What church?
A church.
A church. Church. Tell me about your experience with a church in your lifetime. Whatever.
You were a Mormon.
Yeah, I grew up in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's the official name. It's the Mormons. Right. And they go back and forth. They have identity crisis. So back in the 80s, that was the way that commercials identified it. It was the Mormons. And then for a time, they didn't want to be called Mormons anymore. And now they're back to it, or it depends on who's leading the helm. But anyway, I'll try not to put too much of my whatever. So I grew up in the church. And so when I read the book, The 5 Levels of Attachment, this book right here, that was what I was drawing from when I was reading it. And it was really useful. He uses the example of soccer or football. He said, as he says, football, but then he says, or known as soccer. What do you say? Soccer in America, but football everywhere else in the world, or something like that.
Right.
A little jab at Americans for being the only country calling it something other than what everybody else is doing. Anyway, so I grew up in the Mormon church. My parents had both converted to that faith as adults, and then found each other and got married. And it was good for them. It saved their lives, basically. So it was really useful for them to find that faith, brought them together, and built our family on it. And they taught us. And also reading the Four Agreements. I read the Four Agreements. Well, I was still an active participant in that belief system in the church. I left after I'd read the Four Agreements, but I think before I read the 5 Levels of Attachment, maybe after. I'm not sure now. And so I grew up. They were teaching me their opinion. that this is the truth. And so I grew up believing this is the truth. So this construct of this denomination of Christianity, founded by a modern prophet, Joseph Smith, et cetera, all through to today, this structure was the truth. And I myself would testify in meetings and giving talks at church and teaching lessons. I know this is true. I know that the church is true. That's the language that we use. I know that the church is true. And so that's what they taught us to say as children. I know this is true. I know Joseph Smith is a prophet. I know this is true. And that language is very, very specific. But is it true? Well, I've come to decide for myself, no, it's not true. It was true that I believed it. It was true that my parents believed it. It was true that millions of people around the world believed it. But does that make it more true? Does that make it true? Back to this idea of you see something, you see a tree, and that tree is truth. What it is true. But as soon as you start to describe it, now you've lost some of its truth because you've reduced it to language. If I say it's a beautiful tree and you think it's an ugly tree, which one is it? Is it true? Is it true that it's beautiful, or is it true? Then that goes with the sky color. Oh, is it my truth that it's a beautiful tree, and it's your truth that it's an ugly tree? Well, then what good is truth if it's unique to each one of us?
Wow.
So sometimes when we say true, I think we mean belief, and we should say belief to be more accurate. But we can get to the, as a collective society, we'll get to that eventually. We'll figure it out.
It's just a lot easier to say, that's not true.
Right.
What are you thinking?
Well, it's not, and when we say that's not true, we're saying that's not true from my experience. In other words,
Exactly.
that doesn't line up with my beliefs. So my parents taught me the truth of this church, and I grew up believing the truth of this church. I domesticated myself, more language from the Four Agreements. Yeah. I domesticated myself. I used that belief, which I, in my mind, defined as truth. I used that belief to shape my life. To judge myself, to judge other people, to judge every activity and behavior, everything. Everything was judged through this framework, the domestication process of this belief system. And it was good and bad. It was good and bad, both of it, all of it at the same time. So I have, after leaving the church, when I broke that agreement that I had with that, and let go of the level of attachment that I was at, I had anger for a while about it, and there's still some there. I'm sure you can kind of tell, because I feel like I was lied to, and so there's still some resentments or bitterness in there. I'm getting over that as I go along. I'm purging more of that. I'm not attaching to it. I'm letting go of that resistance and all that. But there's still some there, and you can hear it and when I talk about this topic still.
We attach ourselves to what we believe is the truth, so much so that we're willing to let our words fly. We're willing to let our fists fly. Mm-hmm. And we're willing to let bombs fly. I mean, we go to war over this shit.
Yeah, over your beliefs. Right.
Yeah.
Well, right, because I said it's a beautiful tree and you said it's an ugly tree.
Right.
And then we killed people.
Right.
Crazy. All right. Yeah. Well, let's define some things. So it's belief. Let's define belief. So belief. What was the word I wanted to use? I have it in here. I want to make sure I got it. Acceptance. Acceptance. Right. So belief is an acceptance. You got it there. Read it.
Yeah. Acceptance of or trust in a statement, person, or idea as true or existing.
Yeah. So that's my operational definition of it based on the dictionary definition of it. But I added those, so it can be in a person, an event, a thought, an idea, whatever. But it's the acceptance of something as true. So when I accepted that the structure of the Mormon Church, that the what do they call it, apostolic authority, of these prophets and apostles that are alive today, ordained by Jesus Christ. When I accepted that was the truth, mm-hmm. I created a belief, right? So we talk about truth. This is my truth. This is your truth. I'm speaking my truth. But should we really be saying belief? If belief is the acceptance of an idea as truth, then it makes sense that I should be saying my belief. So I believe, but they taught us this in the church. They taught us this. Don't say you believe the church is true or you believe that this is they don't like to say that. Like, it's the true church of Jesus Christ. I think that was the phrase that was more preferred. But don't say I believe it, because that shows some kind of wavering. That's not knowledge. You know this. You've had a confirmation from the Holy Spirit that this is the truth, right? That's what we're telling. That's what we're teaching children. That's what we're teaching each other in the church. I was. They are still probably. I don't know. I don't go, but that's, I assume. But so that I was taught not to say I believe, but to say I know. Once you've had that confirmation, have you prayed about it? Have you had an answer in your heart? Yeah. Okay. Well, then you know. Okay. Well, how do you know? And that's what I want. Show me, like we talked about initially, the evidence of something that confirms it, right? So what is it? Where is the evidence? Show me the evidence. Well, I can't. It's a feeling I had. Okay. So then you have an acceptance of a belief, you have an acceptance of an idea as truth based on your own feelings. That's a belief. So it's not truth.
Does this parallel at all with Scientology?
I don't know anything about Scientology.
Okay.
It parallels with every religion and political affiliation.
Yeah.
Is that good enough for you?
Yeah. G's saying The Four Agreements is a great book. I learned a lot. Being tangible helps make truth easier for the mass public.
Sure.
Too many opinions make truth hard to believe. This tangible helps provide truth, tangibility.
Absolutely right. So evidence, right?
Yeah.
Verifiable evidence. Verifiable evidence helps people to agree on the nature of something.
Right.
But then, so I got to ask, why is it so important that we agree on these things? Why do we have to have that?
Yeah.
And that comes into the levels of attachment. That's what we're going to talk about more here tonight. So then what is attachment? Attachment is a relationship with that belief. Or it can be attachment can be often we talk about attachment styles and attachment through in relationships. So attachment can be between a person and another person, a person and multiple people, groups, a person and an object. My blanket I had when I was a child, I had an attachment to that blanket.
Dirt bike. My dirt bike.
Your dirt bike, yeah. You had a strong attachment to your dirt bike.
Please, thank you.
Yes.
For including my dirt bike.
Including, yes. Yeah.
I'm so glad.
So right. So an attachment can be a relationship between a person and a person and an object, JD and his dirt bike, Paul and his blankie, or a person and an idea.
Yeah.
A person and a belief. So we become attached to it. And so in the book, he provides 5 levels of attachment. Do you have that card on hand?
Yeah.
Drop
sure
that one
do.
up there.
Sure. Yeah.
So you can see them all there. So he uses the experience of soccer to define these. So the first one, authentic self. Well, I talk a lot about authentic self, and this is where I adopted that phrase. I was reading somebody, Alan Watts or Eckhart Tolle, and they were talking about authentic self, and we could call it spirit, authentic self, whatever you want to call it. There's we've got different terminology for it, but it's the I am, the observer of your thoughts. You're not the one making the thoughts. You're the one observing the thoughts. You're not the one having the dream. You're the one observing the dream. Michael Singer talks about that stuff too. But so I like the term authentic self to talk about what's deep inside of there, the spirit and whatever, versus the ego being the illusion of self. So you have the authentic and then the illusion. The authentic self is me. The illusion of self might be the clothes I'm wearing. It's not me, but I'm identifying with it. And we identify with our beliefs, or we can. So at level 1 of attachment to a belief, he uses the example of soccer. So he said, I like soccer. When I'm in my authentic self, I like soccer. It doesn't matter who's playing or what they're doing. It could be kids kicking a can in a dirt yard. Doesn't matter. If it's soccer, I like it. I like watching soccer. I have no attachment to any outcomes. I have no expectations of the way it goes or anything like that. I just like soccer. But he maintains his authentic self. He talks about, or he keeps mentioning a phrase from his grandmother. She said, are you controlling knowledge or is knowledge controlling you? I think that's what he says.
Wow.
Says it all the time. So, yeah, is knowledge controlling you or are you controlling knowledge? And then basically at level 1, you exist without your knowledge. So like we're talking about how we attach to these beliefs and then we use them to identify ourselves. We can also call that belief of knowledge. Sometimes for me, I think the word knowledge, like when I'm reading that, I thought, well, knowledge is more about what I know, not what I believe. But I guess it is the same thing. I know my beliefs, and I probably consider them knowledge. And even still, what do I consider knowledge? Things I read in books? And what are the things I read in books? Not fact, somebody's opinion. sometimes people would argue, well, the textbooks are fact, are they?
Well,
look into who publishes them and whatnot, and who wrote them.
I don't know if it's an opinion that
Yeah.
what goes up must come down.
Well, it's an opinion that we all agree on. We pretty freely would agree on that because we can observe it.
Yeah.
It goes up and then comes down, right? So we can observe these things, and then you can go when you get deeper into how the mechanics of it. I think that's where people might start drawing different
Sure.
opinions. Well, I guess on the words used and how to describe it, perhaps, but there's some level of belief in there.
So what is level 2? Preference.
Level 2 is preference, and so that's where so level 1 at authentic self, you are the authentic self. You're not letting knowledge control you, and you're able to be in control of the knowledge. Level 2 is preference. So like in the soccer example, he shows up to a soccer match. Do they call them matches? Games?
Sure. Yeah,
The soccer squadron playing a match? I don't know.
Footy.
Yeah. I don't know. So you show up and you choose which team you're going to root for. So there's the red jerseys and the blue jerseys, and you say, I like blue. I'm gonna root for the blue jerseys because you know that attaching to the knowledge, or attaching to that belief, even slightly, just for a time, allows you to have a more emotional experience. If you watch the game and you don't care who wins, it's still fun to watch soccer, but it's not there's not as much of an investment. So you're not without that attachment. But with the attachment, you run the risk of losing. Right, so there's you run the risk of disappointment, but you increase the risk of joy. So
you're making me think of three people here. You're making me think of my brother and his family, who are diehard Steelers fans, like off the rails.
Mm-hmm.
I have another friend who is also the same way about the Steelers, and I have another friend who's the same way about the Eagles.
We'll save them until we get to levels 3 and 4.
Okay.
If you will.
Yeah.
All right. So preferences. So with them, that's a little bit deeper than what we're talking about.
All right.
This is you and I go to the Montpelier. What are they called? The baseball squadron. I like to say squadron. This is a Simpsons reference, I think. Squadron. Oh no, it's Brian Regan. That's who it is. Brian Regan's in my brain. Go Squadron or something like that. It's funny. What's that? The Mountaineers, Woodchucks? Mountaineers, right?
Yeah,
That's it.
sure.
Right. So we go over there. I don't know them. I don't know. We go over there to watch the team play. Maybe you have an affiliation to the team because it's the home team or whatever. So you pick that team. I'm gonna root for these guys.
Right.
I don't pay any attention to them. I don't know any of the players. I've never been to a game before, one of their games before. So we go over there to watch that game. We go, yeah, Mountaineers, go, 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 and we're attached to that lightly. A little bit. We have a preference.
It's our local team.
It's not me. Like I go, I don't care who wins. I love baseball. I want to watch baseball. Okay, that's level 1. That's authentic self. Then you might go, yeah, local team. Root for the home team. That's preference. You got a little bit of a preference there. And then they lose, and you at level 2 preference goes, man, I wanted them to win. And I go, it was a great game. And we walk out of there, and all the emotion that was there is gone. It's over. We had fun. It was over with. There's no sadness, nothing else. So it's preference for time. It's a light attachment. Again, are you controlling your knowledge, or is your knowledge controlling you? There's no impact from that. We walk out of there free. Okay, so that's preference. This is light levels of attachment. These are the healthiest ways to be, according to this schematic. Again, just this is opinions. This guy had an opinion. He wrote a book about it. That's all it is. I agree with his opinion. I like it, so I promote it and I talk about it. And then so we get into level 3, which is internalization, right? Identification. Identification is level 3.
Identify.
Yep, identification. And then that's where so tell me about your people with the Steelers.
Just crazy fans.
So do they wear the apparel of the Steelers?
Oh, my God, yes.
Yeah.
My brother's got Steelers underwear.
Yeah.
Floor mats, toothbrush holders, shower curtains, fuzzy socks. The list goes on.
Yeah.
People get tattoos.
Yep. Right.
My buddy who's an Eagles fan, down just outside of Philly. We were joking around. We had him on the air before the Super Bowl and just having fun and making up rumors about him that he had a bald eagle in a cage.
Oh yeah, you told me about that.
In his living room.
I believed you.
It wouldn't surprise me if he did.
Yeah.
He's that much of a fan.
Right.
Cried when they won.
Yeah. So that's deeper than identification. That's internalization. But at the identification level, all the other stuff, wearing the colors, wearing the jersey, wearing the hat, having a tattoo, all these things are identification. You are putting your, and again, we're not talking about sports. We're using sports as a representation, as an example of what we're talking about here. We're talking about belief, attachment to belief. So at this level of attachment to belief or knowledge, you are identifying with it.
Yeah.
So when I walked around saying, I'm a Mormon, when the first thing I said, when I had a college class and it said, list 10 things that, how you identify yourself. And the first one, I'm a Mormon. That's identification, right? And so we identify with these things. You show up to a sporting event and you're wearing the colors of the team. You're identifying with that team. And we are going to win. We are going to beat them. We're better than them. And you start to draw some separation between you and other people because of this idea that you hold that this team is good or the best. And so you identify with it, you say we, and you start to tell people about it and circle your people together.
Sure.
You align with people who think like you.
Sure.
And then we get to internalization, and that's where there's emotion here. It's a football game.
Right.
And your friend cried tears of joy.
Yes.
Which is better than the tears of sorrow that the Chiefs fans might have cried that night.
They're climbing light poles.
Yeah. Right. But didn't they grease them?
They did.
And they climbed them anyway.
Here's the thing. I mean, even if I was a fan, I would be a fan. I'd be happy. But I wouldn't take it to the level of flipping a car over or climbing a light pole.
Well, and that gets into a different story of emotional regulation. Or dysregulation, I guess you would say.
Dysregulation.
I have opinions on that we can talk about sometime.
God.
But it's at that level of, so the internalization, level 4, level of attachment here, that's where you start to separate out. And if you are not, like, so when you're walking down the street after the game and you see someone wearing a Chiefs jersey and you're wearing the Eagles jersey and you belittle them and yell at them and make fun of them and tell them to get lost and take their loser self home and all that kind of stuff. That's where you've created this belief, or you use that to create the ego, the illusion of yourself. So now you're starting to identify, or you've already identified. You're internalizing this stuff to the point of, this is who I am. This is me. Now you see this with religion, with politics, all that stuff, with sports.
The word "we."
Yeah.
I hear my brother talking about the Steelers. We've got the best defense that we've had in years. We've got this particular player. We've got this. We've got that. We.
Yeah.
What do you mean? You and the team. You own the part of the team now. That's amazing.
Yeah.
But we could hear that in religion also.
Oh yeah. Well, in politics and all of it. Everything.
Everywhere.
Yeah. We do it all the time. But and the thing that separates level 4 off of level 3, so it's more than identification, is that you start to separate. So what separates the levels is what separates the levels. It's the separating out of in-group and out-group kind of things. And so you start to associate only with people that have that same belief that you do. And obviously that can be problematic.
Yeah.
You start to get into groupthink and all that kind of stuff, what psychology studies. But yeah, this pushing people away. And if you've got that T-shirt, my sister got me a T-shirt for Christmas that says please don't feed the animals, or don't feed the animals. And it's got the Republican elephant and the Democrat donkey on it. It's great. Don't feed the animals. So I put it up in my office because I don't usually wear that kind of gimmicky stuff, but I liked it. And I thought it was a good shirt, so I put it up in my office. But that's like, you start to, if I wear that T-shirt, that's me aligning with a specific belief. That's me presenting. That's identifying with a belief, and that's not a belief that I want to identify with. Now well, I guess I don't want to affiliate with those groups at all.
Right.
Even to make fun of the two of them together. So I guess if I was going to identify with a belief in that arena, that would be the one. Don't feed the animals. So it's pushing them both away. But I don't like the whole system altogether, so I don't want to play in that.
I'm thinking of the, you could also just wear a T-shirt that says "Don't believe the hype."
Yeah. Yeah, that would be interesting. You wear that and then see what people people think the hype is.
Right. Exactly.
Or like if you go to somewhere where like some kind of demonstrations being put on or a protest, you go to a protest that says I'm with a thing or something like that, like some real vague message, but it could go either way, and go in with one side and see if they accept you, and then go in with another side and see if they accept you. I don't know. It's just interesting if you can, when you can. Again, it's a lot of the stuff is based on what you can see in another person, the identification, the stereotype, and stuff like that. So you wear a red T-shirt and walk into a Republican rally, and you'll probably be accepted. You wear it into the Democrat rally, and they might look at you funny. It's just a colored shirt. That's it. But that's how deeply these attachments get.
Oh yeah.
And so if we go into the fifth level, fanaticism, that's where I think that emotion is played out. The example he uses in the book is extreme, to where if someone isn't identifying with your belief, then they lose their humanity. So when we talk about fanatics with sports and stuff like that, we're not talking about murdering, but he's talking at this level. He's talking about murder. This is the deepest level of attachment to a belief, and so this is where you have all these killings and stuff. And so he cites an example where I forget where someone in Europe, there was a public bus driver was sitting outside the arena. He was working a shift, but he was waiting for the crowds to come out of the stadium. He was listening to the soccer game on the radio, and his team lost. And so he was devastated because he's very deeply attached to the belief that this team is important. And some people come out walking across the street wearing the colors of the other team that just won, celebrating, and he ran him over, killed him. He killed several people because they had the other colors. That's crazy. I mean, especially in the context of a sporting event, that is just crazy to me. But what about politics? Like we talked about going to war over, I used the example of the tree, but you talked about we kill each other over beliefs. Yeah, well, it's the same thing.
What about what's going on in the Middle East?
Yeah, you live there and I live here, and we have different country names, and because you have that country name, I'm going to kill you for it. This stuff is wild. We're doing that. The same thing
makes me think of Hitler.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he did it. He had a bunch of different characteristics. If you didn't line up with his characteristics, he killed you. But when religions have done it, we have extremists in every faith. People attached to that level throughout history. People have attached to that level of belief, or where they become fanatics about it. And it's not enough that I will distance myself from you. Right. You'll be part of my outgroup. Right. That's not enough. You are no longer human. You no longer deserve to be alive if we don't believe the same thing. Thankfully, most of us aren't at that level.
Yeah.
But there are people that get to that level.
Sure.
And that's wild. Because if they can do it, we can do it. They're not special. Hitler wasn't special.
It's happening.
He's a human.
All over the world.
Yeah, people happen all the time. We all have that capacity, though. It's just how deeply are we attaching to these beliefs. So what do we do about it?
Yeah.
How do you get back out of it? If you get to that level, how do you get back out of it?
I think of, I'm listening to you, and I'm thinking of things that I'm attached to.
Mm-hmm.
Where
peanut butter.
I love peanut butter. I don't know what the hell I would do without peanut butter.
You'd live a healthier life.
Seriously, though, things that I'm attached to, like really deeply attached to. My child,
mm-hmm.
my kid, where you can't imagine life without it. I recently said to a friend, if there was one food, one vice that you had that you could eat as much as you want or consume food or drink without it being harmful to you or fattening or whatever.
Would it be beneficial to you? Like, would it sustain your life or just not take away from your life?
It wouldn't take away.
It wouldn't add any nutritional value?
No.
Okay,
it just wouldn't have any negative impact on you at all.
Okay.
What would it be? And, man, it was like a serious question. Would it be chips? Ooh. Well, what about ice cream? Ugh.
Do you still enjoy it the same?
Oh, yeah, you would still enjoy it the same. What about
pizza and soda? Easy.
What about pizza? What about a Snickers bar, Milky Way? And for me, the question was returned back to me. What would it be? Would it be chips, whatever? You could have copious amounts of anything, and it wouldn't impact you negatively. And I chose Coca-Cola. I just love the taste of Coke.
Yeah.
That's my thing. And but we attach ourselves to these things where we're like, ooh, gotta have it. I've had a bad day. I deserve a cold beer or a cold Coke or this bag of chips or whatever.
6 hours binging some series on Netflix.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, because we
get attached to TV too. Yeah.
Well, all these things, we attach to a belief that this thing is going to make me better. So this comes back to this idea of not being in our authentic self. And so if level one of attachment to belief is the authentic self, and the deeper you go, the further you are from being in the authentic self.
Yeah.
And it makes sense that we get to these deeper levels of attachment through a lack of awareness of our authentic self. Mm-hmm. So how do we get back up? That's what it is. Awareness is how we do it. We increase our awareness that we are holding this belief in such high regard. We've created this belief as part of our identity. We've put on this cloak of ego, this illusion of self, and it's formed by all of these different beliefs that we hold. And then we have to start looking at them, if we're willing to look at it and say, is this true? So I spent my entire life until 6 years ago as a Mormon. Grew up in it. I had no idea to question it. My parents were both members of the church. They taught it to me, my siblings. We all went to church every week. Both my parents went, so we went every week. It was the truth. It was the reality. My friends at school didn't, but I learned that there were children who were Jewish, and there were children who were Catholic, and there were children who were Mormon. There weren't a lot of us, but there was a few of us. I grew up in New Jersey. And that was part of my identification. It was my belief. And for me, it was true. Well, why doesn't everybody know it's true? Well, everybody's got different beliefs. Okay. Not everybody's presented with it. Not everyone, it takes the time to ask. The older I got, I asked that question became wider. As a child, why are there different churches? Well, everybody has different beliefs. Okay, and that's satisfying as a child. But as you get older, and then when I was 23, I went out to California as a missionary for the church. So now I'm wearing a name tag with my name and the church's name, representing the church. And I'm out there as a representative. I'm knocking on people's doors and asking if they'd like to learn about Jesus, and then teaching them if they're interested in teaching them. And I was going out because for me, it was so important. So that's that internalization level. It's not enough that I believe it. You got to believe it too. Now, it wasn't to a point of like I couldn't accept someone who didn't believe it. I think growing up in a mixed culture, not Utah, where it was predominantly Mormon. I think growing up in a culture where everybody is of the same belief system would be harder to accept people who are not. But I grew up in an area where it wasn't that many people. Most of the students at my school, majority, like my elementary school, was me and my siblings. So it wasn't like it was a whole lot of people had the same belief system as I did. And all through life, you have different degrees of that. I went to a church school, the Mormon, one of their BYU offshoots in Idaho. It was really uncomfortable for me in a lot of ways. It was a culture shock going to a place where everything, we prayed before classes, every class. College, this is college. Every class we pray, and we refer in the church. You refer to people as brother and sister. The last name, Brother Brody, you'd be Brother Green, right? That's the one of the customs that we use in the church. And so these are professors, these are doctors, PhDs, and usually at most universities you call them doctor, but there you call them brother. And so I was balancing that in my mind. I'm like, this is kind of disrespectful to their academic achievements, but at the same time, it was like normalizing that we're just people. So I think there were some good elements to that too, I guess. But all my experiences, I go through these different elements. I'm realizing that where was I going? I don't remember. I was getting to the point, I guess, where I increased my awareness and had to start asking the question, because I never really doubted. There was times where I wasn't living in complete agreement with the church or like with an alignment with all of the expectations, all of the commandments, all of the standards that we're supposed to. I struggle with that off and on. And I think that's a big cause of I went through some serious depression and anxiety for around 15 years of my life. Or
Really?
something. Oh yeah, it was rough. I went in the Army when I was 20, got chaptered out for an anxiety disorder. I came home a year early from the missionary service due to agoraphobia and depression and anxiety. And so at the time, that was just what I was experiencing. But when I left the church, I realized that the church was a big factor in all of that. Had that church had the expectations and the pressure of living up to this persona that I was supposed to be. That the church taught me is how I was supposed to be, because I believed it to the point of this is the truth. This isn't just a belief. This isn't just something I do on a Sunday. This is reality.
Were you doubting?
I never doubted it.
Doubting, or were you questioning?
All through my life, I never doubted the church. I never until I was this was in 2018. So when I first doubted it. I never doubted it up to that point. I never questioned it. I was told you're not allowed to question it. So I never did either one. So my awareness stayed low.
I think that's different. I think it's good to question stuff.
You have to question everything.
And then, if you get to a point after you've questioned it where you then determine that you doubt it, that's different. But
see, the struggle.
It's good to question.
The issue with the reason that this book is so this topic of levels of attachment is so powerful to me is because I didn't doubt it. I didn't doubt the belief. I doubted myself because of the belief. That's my understanding of it now. I held that in more regard than myself. So the person I was supposed to be was more important than who I was.
Yeah.
And that person I was supposed to be was generated from my domestication process. And this isn't I have no ill will towards my parents of teaching me these things. This is all my experiences in my life. I appreciate every bit of it because it made me what I am. So when I talk about this and I talk about the church in a negative context, I don't wish that I could have done it differently, because if I had a different life, I would be a different person right now. And so I appreciate everything that I learned. And even if it was uncomfortable at times, or even looking back, because at the time when I was 25 years old, I wasn't thinking about my depression and experiences because of the church.
Yeah.
But looking back, it was because of that. It was because I had this expectation of what I was supposed to be, and then I had this drive of what I was,
right?
And they didn't match, and so my life was out of balance. And now I can see that that's what this was. Back then, I couldn't see that. But so when it finally came around, I discovered some new information that I wasn't aware of about the history of the church, and then that's what created. I said, wait a second, how can I have lived 38 years? I'm an ordained high priest. I've been a missionary. I've been through the temple. I've done all of the things you do in the church. How could I have done all these things and not be aware of this piece of the history? Because they purposefully held it away from us. And then I learned that not only were they hiding it, and now they're revealing it. Why now? I don't know. People have said because they can't hide it anymore because the internet exists and we're all more connected. But because it was hidden, I said, well, why did they not want us to know this? And I learned that people who had been talking about this 20 years ago were getting excommunicated from the church. But now the church admits it. So when you come out and tell your history that 20 years ago you were trying to silence people from talking about, now you're admitting it, well, there's some deception going on there. And so then I had to ask the question, so that's where my question became, why did they want to hide it from me? Did they think that I couldn't handle it, or they didn't want me to know? Why were they hiding it from me? One of those things. And that's when I said, well, this can't be good. And so the more I looked into it, the more I started questioning. My awareness increased. As my awareness increased, my level of attachment, so I don't know which one's high or low, whatever. Yeah. I go from 5, I wasn't a 5, I wasn't killing people for it. I was probably borderline between 3 and 4. I definitely identified with it, but I think that I maintained some element of acceptance of difference of opinion. I definitely had some feeling of this is true whether you believe it or not, but I still accepted other people's opinions, so I was somewhere between 3 and 4. But as my awareness increases, these questions allowed me to or as I started to question the belief, my awareness increased, and I said, well, if that's this way, and I thought it was that way, then what about this?
Yeah.
And so I started looking at these other things. And it's interesting because now I'm listening to and I'm reading things that previously I had 100% agreed with.
Yeah.
People who I 100% respected and thought that these were intelligent people who knew what they were talking about. They're very spiritual. Now I'm listening to them talk, and I'm hearing anger and fear, and that wasn't there before. I wouldn't allow it to be there before. And it was really interesting looking at the same material from a different perspective, from a different light. And so as my awareness increased and I came out of those deeper levels of attachment, and now I dropped the internalization. This isn't what I am. I don't believe this anymore. Let go of the identification. I don't go to that church. I don't believe in these things anymore. Let go of the preference. I don't know what's true. I don't know. I don't have any affiliation with this anymore. And then I came back to my authentic self on the topic of religion and spirituality. Wow. And from there, I could explore more things.
The five levels of attachment, the Toltec wisdom for the modern world, as written by Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. This is a fantastic book. You can get it anywhere. Jackie just posted a question. Does this book delve into the mechanics of addiction? And
no.
If not, do you have a book that you would recommend for that?
Give me a week and I'll write it. No, I don't have a book. So addiction is an interesting one. There's so much to it. This book will help with that. It doesn't use the language of addiction. I think he might mention it briefly in passing, and how you have a belief about it. I'd give a better answer if I had specifics, which I'm not asking for specifics here on a live stream. But so I'll try and keep it general with addiction. The idea being that we want to get to the authentic self. And in the context of what we're talking about tonight, the beliefs are what keep us from the authentic self. The deeper we attach to the beliefs, the deeper we get into the ego, the illusion of self, the further away we are from authentic self. So books like The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, The Four Agreements, those are probably the ones I recommend the most as far as increasing the awareness of the authentic self and letting go of the ego.
Sure.
So yeah, Eckhart Tolle, Michael Singer, and these guys, the Ruiz family. So they also, and then it was what's the other one? Oh, and The Fifth Agreement. That's by Jose, the brother of Miguel Jr. But all these, because they all of them, and there's others too. Alan Watts talks about it, but they all get to this element of there's the authentic self, the observer, the spirit, and then there's what we think we are. What we think we are is where the addiction is occurring. And often it's going to be because we are not centered in our authentic self. We're living in the ego. We think that that's who we are. It's uncomfortable. It's unpleasant. Mm-hmm. And then we want to make it more comfortable, more pleasant. And when you're living in the ego, you're not realizing that everything is okay inside. You're already all right. You're perfect. Your soul is perfect. Your authentic self is perfect. That's something perfect. Not flawless, perfect meaning complete, but in the case of our authentic self, it probably is flawless. It's eternal, divine, whatever. But if you're in that state where you feel like I'm not okay,
yeah,
and I need to do this behavior, ingest this substance, or participate in this behavior in order to make me okay, you're never going to be okay, and you're going to keep doing the same thing over and over again. I think that was just something I just read.
I'm glancing across here.
Yeah.
Alice says The Book of Virtues by Willem Bennett. And Jackie just posted. Are you familiar with that book?
No, I've never heard of it.
Jackie just posted that she was referring more to the parallels of choosing the one food and the extreme preference,
Yeah.
as well as the connectedness or lack of to a certain group. with regard to addiction. So
this is something I was reading in here earlier. Our freedom to choose is true freedom. It is free will. If we choose to remain attached to something that brings us pain, so addiction, he doesn't say that, I'm saying that. If we choose to remain attached to something that brings us pain, it is because that thing also comforts us in some way. And and that's what addiction is. It's not a disease. It's a pattern of behavior where we use something to change the way we feel because we don't feel okay. And so that's using Michael Singer's language in The Untethered Soul. If you're not okay inside, you're seeking to make yourself okay inside, but you're never going to find something outside of yourself to make you feel okay inside of yourself. So it's a losing battle, but that's what we're doing. We become attached to the belief that this thing is going to make me better, and it never will. So even though it's bringing us long-term detrimental consequences, in the short term, it brings us some kind of relief because in the moment, I'm not feeling that way anymore. I'm not feeling not okay inside because I used a painkiller or used a depressant, whatever. I brought myself down. I got myself high, whatever direction you're trying to go in. Whatever it is, you've addressed that tension, the resistance in your body, the physical resistance or the mental resistance. You've addressed that with the substance or the behavior, and now you feel okay. And even though it's fleeting and temporary and it's going to create more problems tomorrow, we still do it because it gives us some kind of comfort in the moment.
I love this time that we have had together. And I already can't wait for the next one that we do in March. It'll be toward the end of the month. Be listening because we'll let you know who exactly it's going to be. Thank you for coming in here, Paul. It could be a pleasure. It could be Dr. Rick Barnett. We're going to also do a makeup date for Karina Thurston. What an amazing story that she's got. TEDx speaker, and of course, Rick Barnett is just, oh my God, it's going to be fantastic. And Kristen Williams too. Also, so we've got several months booked out here. I love listening to what you have to say. This is fascinating stuff. You do an outstanding job, brother.
Thanks.
And we encourage people to learn more about you, Paul, by getting on imaginemovingon.com.
Yeah. It's my little garage sale webpage.
You're a local counselor.
Yep.
Right here.
Yep.
In the city.
Right in Barrie.
Love having you
right
on.
Here in
man.
River City.
Thank you again, Paul.
It's not
so
River
much.
City. I don't know what it is. I was Music Man quote.
Thank you, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
Good night.
All right.